Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
You are tuned in to the FowlWeather Podcast, the forecast to your next successful hunt. Coming to you from the home office, Jack's Reef, New York.
Harvest doesn't matter. Sometimes. We've heard that we should stop saying harvest doesn't matter because it is a bad narrative. But certainly it is not a narrative, because a narrative is storytelling. And we aren't here to tell stories. We are here to present the facts. So what you are saying is stop providing fact-based information, and that ain't gonna happen. Instead, the FowlWeather Podcast will keep doing what we have always done. Report the facts, report the science, and the quality information to all the great people across duck country because you deserve it. If it does not fit your narrative or storytelling that you do yourself, too bad. Go cry in your cup of tears. Does harvest matter at times and for some species? Certainly, and we've reported on that a lot in other episodes. Anyhow, we also got hate mail that we'd like to tackle. We reflect on the past 2 years of the FowlWeather Podcast. We compare and contrast the North American and European models of waterfowl conservation and hunting. Plus, Chris Beckman joins the show for a big announcement about a Beckman Game Calls FowlWeather Podcast collaboration. Ooh, all today on a jam-packed episode of the FowlWeather Podcast. A quick reminder to rate, follow, like, and share the FowlWeather Podcast to get all the latest updates and our exclusive duck migration forecast each Monday morning throughout season, plus all of our other informative content. Be the guy at the coffee shop with the real information about the ducks and where the ducks are at. I appreciate y'all very, very much. I'm your host, DrMike, back in the home office in Jack's Reef. It is good to be back on U.S. soil, just back from the 7th Pan-European Duck Symposium, where I was an invited speaker along with my good friend and colleague, Dr. Phil Lavretsky. We gave a fun and informative talk called Hiding in Plain Sight, Lessons Learned from a Century of Game Farm Mallard Releases in the United States. Later in this episode, we will go into depth a bit more about what I learned about waterfowl hunting across much of Europe. I've also been entertained by what I'm calling hate mail, emails and messages otherwise sent our way calling me a liar, which to me equals hate mail. But let's do this. Let's right now jump into the big news with Chris Beckman, who joins the show for our big collaboration announcement. Chris, welcome back to the FowlWeather Podcast.
Thanks, Mike, for having me. Glad to be back.
We had a great conversation before with you about Beckman Game Calls, and I'm going to jump right in and let our listeners know that Beckman Game Calls is going to be releasing a limited edition FowlWeather call for the 2025 season. It's going to be featuring the FowlWeather Podcast logo on the barrel in black acrylic in the Edison line. Only 30 of these limited edition calls have been made and are now available at beckmangamecalls.com. And you also can find the link on our FowlWeather Podcast webpage. Again, Chris, thank you for this great collaboration.
Yeah, Mike, I actually launched both of my calls, the Groundbreaker and the Edison, in black. And so I'm glad we landed on black, and your logo looks great on it, man.
Yeah, and you know what? I've been getting texts and emails and like Facebook Messenger and Instagram stuff from people. And I know you know of a few people that have already picked up the call from our advertisements on the FowlWeather Podcast. So I know a bunch of our loyal listeners have already picked up a call from Chris from Beckman Game Calls. But this is, I want to say, the perfect opportunity, if you have not picked up the Edison, to do so and also show your support of the FowlWeather Podcast by blowing this great looking call and great sounding call in the Duck Marsh this year. And again, only, 30 of these available. So kind of, grab yours today. Chris, you mentioned last time that you left out some really good details about the Edison and the development of your calls. So can you want to give that a roll? I felt like you wanted a little more time to give us some content on your call and how it differentiates from others.
Yeah, I'm again, Mike, I appreciate you having me on. Something I did leave out, and it was the premise of why I started making duck calls in the first place. Like I mentioned, I had to modify the calls for me to fit me. And so that's why I started making calls. I want guys to be able to manipulate the call to fit them and their air pressure. And so I do have a tutorial section on my website with videos of me blowing and kind of tips and tricks on how to get different characteristics out of the call. If you want more rasp or if you want to clean it up and things like that, you can do so with really small adjustments. And I'm always available. If you want to reach out to me in social medias and even on the website, you can leave me comments and I can help you out.
Yeah, and that's great. Thanks. That's super informative for our listeners, and something they can share with friends in the duck blind about the Edison while you're hopefully killing ducks. And if you're a fan, they might be blowing the cut down, the groundbreaker. But y'all also include a QR code that links to all that stuff. Like when you buy a call, there's a QR code right in the box with the call that links to kind of the tutorial and how to adjust the call and everything, right, Chris?
And thank you for reminding me of that. Yes, a lot of guys overlook that, but it does actually link you to the tutorial pages, so you can go listen to sound files and you can kind of see what makes the call the way it is.
And definitely do that, because I didn't, like most dudes do. Like you just pull the call out and you're like, I'm gonna figure this out myself. Like when you make the baby crib without looking at the instructions.
Yeah.
It's what we do as men. But I tell you, I went back later, clicked on the QR code, went through stuff, and it's super informative too. So appreciate you. This is going to be a short spot because we got a long, super jam-packed episode this week, Chris. So, and with any luck, Chris and I will be killing ducks together somewhere in the South and maybe up north together this fall and winter. We're still in the planning phase, but we're going to be blowing that Edison at ducks, somewhere together this season, I'll say. So, Chris, any last words? We got in, we got out. We unveiled the limited edition FowlWeather logo Edison call. So what do you got?
No, I'm really excited for the collaboration calls. And yeah, it'll be on the website. And guys, I would just tell you, record yourself. It's almost our favorite time of year. So get out there, start practicing, and message me or contact me anytime. I'm happy to help.
Thanks, Chris. Again, fellas, pick up your limited edition FowlWeather logo Edison call from Chris Beckman at BeckmanGameCalls.com. Really appreciate you, Chris, and what you're doing for the ducks and in duck hunting.
Thanks, Mike.
Beckman Game Calls has it dialed in. If you want a duck call that is adjustable to your air pressure and sounds like a duck, this is it. I've blown a ton of different calls in my life, but this one is the real deal. Look, we don't endorse just anything. We are only going to put forward a call that works. The Edison by Chris Beckman of Beckman Game Calls, yeah, this beauty sounds like a duck. I only know of one published research paper focused on what makes a duck call sound like a duck. Go look me up, and you will see that colleagues and I have the only paper published in scientific literature about what makes a duck call sound like a duck. For sure, Chris Beckman did his homework, and this call sounds like a duck. This guy knows how to make a duck call, period. But don't just take my word for it. Here's the proof. First, a hen recording, and then the Edison in the big woods of Arkansas. Visit them today at BeckmanGameCalls.com. To be clear, these calls will be available tomorrow, Tuesday, September 2nd. The Labor Day weekend did get a bit in the way of final production, so go check us out and get your limited edition foul weather logo call in the Edison line from Beckman Game Calls. Okay, and we are back into the meat of it today. I think we'll jump right into the folks that are mentally injured by the idea that harvest doesn't matter. When we state that harvest doesn't matter, it is for some species of waterfowl at certain times. It has never been a blanket statement. Remember, it is not a narrative, but rather just reporting on the current state of knowledge. First, I want to ensure that I feel the pain. If you tell folks that harvest really is not typically the driver of many waterfowl species, it leaves them feeling helpless. Like the only lever we have to pull to save waterfowl is harvest. But that ain't even close to true. We're going to cover that at the end of this portion of the episode. What can you do to save the ducks? We've covered this a ton of times on the podcast, but we want to clear up again here so that coffee shop talkers don't get it wrong. For mallards, and this generally applies to other dabbling ducks, harvest only contributes to about 10% of the annual mortality for hen mallards. Just about all mortality, or their deaths, is occurring outside of the hunting season, and mostly during breeding when hens have to sit on nests for extended periods. Mallards and other dabbling ducks are typically reproductively active their first year, so they have what ecologists call an R-selected reproductive strategy. That is, they grow fast, input a lot of energy and effort into reproduction at early age. They lay a lot of eggs, like 8 to 12. They often attempt to re-nest if their first nest fails, but then again, they generally do not live very long. This is like rabbits, that when conditions are appropriate, they increase their populations nearly exponentially. It is a live hot and fast strategy that also includes a lot of risk-taking that some other species do not take. Even in dabbling ducks, there are species like blue-winged teal that are super strongly R-selected and others that are less so. But then there are diving ducks like scaup, redhead, and canvasbacks that are less so R-selected because many of them don't even attempt to nest until their second year, and even at that, they often fail. But diving ducks are still more of the R-selected than K-selected species like eiders and scoters. K-selected species generally focus more on annual survival of themselves than annual reproduction. They tend to be larger, bodied, longer-lived species with a slower mode of operation. Eiders, for instance, may take 3 years to even attempt to nest for the first time. They only lay up to 3 to 6 eggs, and they don't even nest every year. Most geese are similar. Geese are similar in that they have delayed reproductive strategies, and really only the temperate nesting Canada goose regularly nests every single year. So when I say temperate nesting, I mean what people call resident Canada geese, which is a misnomer because they're not residents. They still move like our birds in central New York, go down to the Susquehanna and down into Chesapeake Bay on really cold winters. So there's really no such thing as a resident Canada geese. That'd be like, I live at my home all the time. I'm a resident of Jack's Reef, New York, and I don't go anywhere. That's not true for these Canada geese. So they are temperate nesting zone, climate-wise, Canada geese. All right. So they regularly re-nest, right? Geese even stay together as a family group for their first year because the young are not fully grown when they fledge or can fly and move about the landscape. So this affects harvest because the strongly R-selected species are just naturally a live hot and fast group, and if you don't shoot them, they're likely to die of something else anyway. Does this mean we should abandon limits? Heck no. We've heard that from people. Well, if harvest doesn't matter, then we can just shoot them all. What a dumb statement, honestly. Given the current 60-day and 6-duck limit, which seems to be socially acceptable, we have no indication that harvest is impacting dabbling duck populations like mallards. But at some point, of course, harvest can have an impact. But we are far from it. The entire AHM system is set up to have strong safeguards against affecting duck populations. If anything, it's conservative so we don't impact them. Okay, But then eiders and geese, yes, harvest can affect population dynamics to a degree. This is why limits are lower on eiders. In fact, a large banding study in Maine showed that at current rates a few years ago, that harvest on some years may be unsustainable. And guess what? The limit was decreased. For geese, when juveniles are not replaced in the population because of cold, wet, and snow just when goslings hatch, we can't just keep shooting the adult population when they are not replacing themselves and also then expect population stability. Arctic nesting geese are long-lived, low-output species. Of course, this contrasts with those temperate nesting Canada geese, or what people like to call resident Canada geese, because these geese reproduce each year on available territories, and they have a strong re-nesting capacity. I remember when I was the waterfowl biologist in Maine and estimated that we had to shoot close to 40% of the annual production of geese, the production of geese, not the total population, but the production of geese to stabilize the population or something like that. But you get the idea. I don't have those numbers right in front of me now. This is why we have different seasons for different species, and even different populations within the same species have different seasons, because capacities to substantially harvest depends on what ecologists call R and K selection, along with the environmental conditions that each species is subject to outside the hunting season. I know that's a lot. Go back and listen to it. It's the facts, kids. That brings me to what we can do as a duck hunter if we can't pull the lever of harvest reduction to make a difference, specifically for mallards, let's say. I'm here to give you a list of what you can do to help save the ducks. And I'm not going to start with join conservation organizations and buy a duck stamp, because it's way more than that. Number 1, be informed and politically active. Make sure you are getting information about waterfowl populations and habitat conservation for our ducks, geese, and swans from a credible source like the FowlWeather Podcast. Beware of some dudes just spewing information that sounds correct, because it sure seems like a lot of folks don't do their homework. But again, be politically active, because as I've always said, vote like the ducks' lives depend on it, because they do. And don't be afraid to reach across the aisle to make a difference. You aren't getting in bed with the enemy. You're working together. In a world so divisive, who can't get behind ducks? If I found one universal truth in this world, it is that everyone loves ducks. Of course, after a while of watching them, we start shooting. But that shouldn't get in the way of doing the good work for the ducks with everyone out there that cares about clean water, wetlands, the environment, and ducks, geese, and swans that we shoot. Number 2, and I'm just going to leave this here as a extension of number 1. Talk to your fellow duck hunters about how they can be informed and politically active for the ducks. Number 3, make good food choices and ask more from your food. This sounds anti-farmer, but as I've always said, I'm not anti-farmer, I'm anti-doing it the stupid way. That's bad for the environment. I will not mince words here. Row crop agriculture is the number 1 reason for wetland loss, wetland consolidation, wetland filling, and wetland pollution in the core duck factory of the prairie pothole region. Specifically, soybean and corn with a little dash of wheat and some other lesser crops have had a negative effect on ducks, but mostly soybeans and corn. Just look at labels on processed foods. Did you ask for soy and corn in basically everything? Or did the agri-industrial food complex figure out how they could exploit you by growing a bunch of soy and corn easily and then finding ways to jam it into your food? Try avoiding processed food a bit more. Buy local fresh. Simply look to the small ways to change your eating habits that benefit ducks. Hey, the bumper sticker, no farms, no food is correct, but we don't even directly eat most of the corn we grow. Most of it goes to ethanol and animal feed, so we kind of indirectly eat the corn. 40 to 45% of corn goes to animal feed, 30 to 45% goes to ethanol, and a small portion, under 5 to 10%, goes directly to human food products like sweeteners, starch, and cornmeal. But damn it, if you are shooting ducks, not eating them, then buying corn-fed beef, while dropping in ethanol to your truck and sucking down a bunch of soy and corn-filled Little Debbie's, Cheetos, and other junk, you're doing nothing for the ducks. In fact, you're probably the problem. All right, so I pissed off a bunch of you right now, all our great friends across Duck Country, USA. I like my Little Debbie's too, so don't blame me. I'm just pointing out that the agri-industrial complex that we are stuck in is real. Be a free thinker and make good choices about your food for the ducks. And heck, yourself. I could do without a few more Little Debbies. Hey, number 4, be an advocate for clean water and pollution reduction. Let's quit pretending that wetland drainage isn't a flooding and downstream problem that also includes pollution, and let's work to find real solutions because ducks need clean water, and it would be great if water from a wetland that they need to breed isn't in your living room from a flood. The science on this is clear, but the Clean Water Act is getting gutted, and that is 100% bad for ducks. This is not a political comment, so don't shoot the messenger. Just reporting the facts. Farm nutrients and things like neonicotinoids, which are seed treatments, are entering our wetlands and reducing invertebrate densities, which can turn into effects on carrying capacity for ducks, or let's say, how many ducks can be produced per acre. So we need to advocate for clean water. Number 5, if you own land, ensure it is doing the most good for the ducks. Be a steward. Do not just be a landowner and duck shooter. Think about what you're doing today and tomorrow for the ducks during migration. Folks, send them back strong. Number 6, get off social media, which tends to be a divisive place anyway. If you do comment, provide good information with facts, maybe even share something that you learned on the FowlWeather Podcast or from our social media pages, and get in and get out. Don't debate. So start really talking to your neighbors and friends, no matter who they are. At the end of the day, we all need a healthy planet to live and survive, and that includes ducks. Number 7, make good energy choices and send an anti-ethanol message. This is not anti-corporation or anti-farmer. It is just common sense to make choices that don't gobble up duck habitat. Subsidizing ethanol never made sense. It was a Democrat idea that we all got sucked into, and it made everybody think that we were like being super green. But now the current administration won't get rid of ethanol because they need the farming community vote. But ethanol is probably the dumbest thing on the block when it comes to the environment. We burn. All right, I'm going fast. Take some time here. We burn 400 times the primary productivity of the planet each year in gasoline. And we think we're going to replace our energy needs by burning plants? Get real. Nobody in the environmental field worth their salt thinks ethanol is a good idea. Get more people into duck hunting. Number 8, get more people into duck hunting and positively promote duck hunting to the non-hunting community. Duck hunting is certainly about killing ducks, but it is a lot more. It is about tradition, being part of the marsh, harvesting healthy game to eat, and making great meals and great memories with family and friends. Be a duck hunting diplomat and take others duck hunting as well. Plus, ensure everyone around you has a positive outlook on duck hunting. Fix your non-hunting friends a wonderful duck dinner. There are tons of great recipes out there, so show folks that ducks are part of the cycle of life and great food just like all other wild game and fish. But mostly think about it tightly and present yourself well. Be a diplomat for the ducks in duck hunting. Make sure that you are seen in a positive light by your community. Number 9, this is an easy one. Buy more duck stamps. I don't care what is going on in North Dakota. Someone attacked me on social media for buying more duck stamps than I need because they go to buy land in North Dakota that is now not as accessible to hunt as it once was. Maybe think about all the good that duck stamps have done for duck habitat and duck hunting across this great country and stop being so selfish. And for that matter, the non-resident sentiment is boiling up everywhere. So kind of shut your mouth and just buy more duck stamps. If you can afford another couple dozen decoys, you can afford to buy 3 to 6 duck stamps per year. It is by far the best investment that goes directly to duck habitat. And number 10, of course, join and be active with conservation organizations, and that doesn't stop at Ducks Unlimited and Delta Waterfowl Foundation. There's the Teddy Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, backcountry hunters and anglers, clean water groups like river keepers and others, and even local land trusts that all help the ducks. Think about joining a clean water advocacy group and take control of your local environment by being part of active groups aimed at doing the most good for the ducks. Does this mean you have to shake hands across the aisle? Hell yes, it does. But it's for the ducks, and you're not really compromising yourself. So be active. And I don't mean active on social media. I mean really, really active in an organization working towards a future that includes ducks. That might be a wetland group, even though they aren't duck hunters. Man, think about it. It will benefit the ducks. So if you feel helpless, you should not. Reducing the duck season feels like an immediate and easy lever to pull, but it's like putting out your recycling bin at the end of the curb each week. That is, if you have recycling locally. It feels good, but it does little actually to save the planet. Instead, actively live a life that benefits the ducks. There are so many ways, all small, but they compound for the greater good. So quit with the reducing duck seasons and bag limits when all it will do is make you feel good, like putting your recycling out at the end of the curb instead of figuring out what your actual footprint on this planet is. If the duck season needs reducing, that's already baked into AHM, which we covered in episode 94, Adaptive Harvest Management from Smoke-Filled Rooms and Strong Voices to Application of Sound Science. So if you haven't listened to it, go back and check it out. And if you have listened to it, maybe check it out again and compare it with our notes here. And it came up again and is a false narrative. Nobody reorganized the decision matrix of Mallard AHM to keep a liberal season so that guides and companies can make more money. That is conspiracy talk. Ducks Unlimited podcast just did a great job of covering that adaptive harvest management is adaptive and the matrix changed based on information input. But y'all keep pushing your narrative to fit an agenda. The matrix changes every year based on information from the prior year. And in some years, we learn more than others, so the matrix changes a bit more, and sometimes it kind of looks the same. We also have had fundamental changes to the model that incorporated the lag system because we don't make decisions based specifically for this season coming up based on the current breeding population. So the breeding population information and all the AHM stuff that's coming in this year right now, coming out, I think tomorrow, actually, if you're listening to this on Monday, it's coming out tomorrow. That information is used to set the season for next year. And you know why that's okay? Because harvest doesn't matter. Some of the time, and for some species, as we've noted. And last, our 10 points. What can you do to save the ducks? It's just common sense. You can't pave paradise and expect anything other than a parking lot. None of this should be thought of as crossing some political boundary and being a crazy environmentalist. It is all common sense, and the ducks deserve a whole bunch more of that. All right. Off the soapbox for now, my friends. Next up, foreign exchange ducks, how they duck hunt in Europe. So please stick with me. The Farmland Group is your one-stop shop for real estate brokerage, consulting, management, lending, and appraisal across Arkansas, Mississippi, Missouri, Louisiana, Georgia, Tennessee, and growing. Contact them today at farmlg.com. Hey, I'm telling you, do not hesitate because these folks are busy buying, selling, and providing consulting and management strategies that build value into your portfolio on your land. So get in the queue today. Get on their radar. Get on their books. Man, y'all won't be disappointed. Contact the Farmland Group today at farmlg.com. That's farmlg.com.
At Talus, we know cybersecurity can be tough and you can't protect everything, but with Talus, you can secure what matters most. With Talus industry-leading platforms, you can protect critical applications, data, and identities anywhere and at scale with the highest ROI. That's why the most trusted brands and largest banks, retailers, and healthcare companies in the world rely on Talus to protect what matters most: applications, data, and identities. That's Talus, T-H-A-L-E-S. Learn more at talusgroup.com/cyber.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started today at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Okay, and we are back. So I spent the past week or so in Sweden at the 7th Pan-European Duck Symposium, or PEDS 7. My wife traveled with me, and we also spent some time in Denmark. It was a wonderful trip. We saw 70 new bird species, including greylag, barnacle geese. We also got Eurasian widgeon, green-winged teal over there, which differ actually from our North American green-winged teal, shovelers, pintails, gadwall, mallard, Eurasian coot, lots of shorebirds and other water birds. But we did miss on seeing a common shell duck, which that was one of the big ones I was trying to get on my list, but that was my first time off North American soil. I'm well-traveled in the States and Canada, but not so much a world traveler. That said, I've communicated a bunch with our friends across the pond, and I'm co-author on a waterfowl migration book chapter with colleagues from Sweden and France. So I've interacted with them, but never traveled their way or been to PEDS, or the Pan-European Duck Symposium. But let me tell you, it was eye-opening and made me respect what we have in North America. I will tell you this: you don't want to lose your coordination under the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, and you do not want to lose the surveys and monitoring that includes our coordinated banding. Europe has no universal coordination of how to manage migratory birds. Banding, or what they call ringing there, banding is called ringing. It is not centralized, so harvest rates are relatively unknown. They don't have complete coordination surveys because the countries can't seem to get along. And there is also the evil empire, the country that will not be named, Russia. They don't even like to say the name Russia. And in Russia, in Siberia, that is where possibly 50% of some of the species of waterfowl breed that migrate through Europe, and there is zero coordination. Zero. As far as seasons, because nobody can agree on conservation and management strategies, everybody wants their piece of the pie. Seasons open in late August or early September and go until the end of January. There is no bag limit in some places for most species. You can legally bait fields in many countries. And in France, you can shoot ducks at night over live decoys. Folks, it's like being back in the market hunting days, despite what we know about waterfowl conservation nowadays. It's a mess, period. But here is the deal. Hunting is privatized, and so private landowner rights go long ways in Europe. They have no North American model of wildlife conservation. They basically have very little public hunting ground in most places, and so the general public is not engaged and active like here in the States and Canada. So here's where that all leaves them. They take breeding population numbers from what they have, which doesn't include Russia, and they look at their harvest, and then they have to think about closing seasons on things like widgeon and green-winged teal because they really have no idea how many total there are. And this is effed. But what it did highlight to me was that when you lose coordination, you have bad surveys, and you have bad monitoring through banding, you must take the conservative approach. And that might be where we're headed if we lose coordination, surveys, and monitoring of our North American waterfowl. So let's not go there. Let's not be Europe when it comes to waterfowl conservation and harvest management. Let's be the good old US of A and keep doing it right. Up next, your hate mail, and we reflect on the past 2 years. What's next going forward? So please, stick with me. How many days have you had empty skies over the duck blind? Your property can be more with Wildlife Strategies. It is no secret that hiring a consultant, an expert in managing water, woods, and fields, an expert in duck food, an expert in hunting pressure management. Hiring a consultant yields better habitat for the critters you chase. Less empty skies, more quality days of field, more smiles for miles with family and friends. If that's your game and goal, contact Ryan Delaney at ryan@farmlg.com for a site visit. And hey, here's the deal. I'm filled up for summer 2025 with clients up north, but if our northern friends have a property in need of some love, contact me at DrMike at FowlWeather.co for a summer 2026 site visit. Okay, on to your hate mail. Gotta love it, right? Now, is it really hate mail? It's probably not, but it isn't a reasonable discussion, that's for sure. So these are kind of off-the-wall comments we got. First up, I'm supposedly a liar because I once noted that nut job organizations from Louisiana that are pushing a dumb anti-flooded corn agenda were started back in like 2005 to 2008. I guess that's not true, but the point of the conversation I had on another podcast where I was guest was that the same kind of nut job conspiracy theory stuff came up back when the mallard population was low last time. And all that conspiracy crap came from Louisiana. I remember trying to post something from these folks or maybe some group like them on the Al Afton listserv back around 2006 or so. And if you're not familiar with this listserv, it goes out to waterfowl professionals across the globe. It's run by Dr. Al Afton, who at that time, back in 2006, was working at LSU as a professor. Al basically stated, I'll post lots of stuff, but I ain't posting anything from these guys. Not now, not ever. And I'm not sure if the folks now are the same people, just under a different name. Heck, I didn't even know they existed again, but seems that the wackos are at it again. I mean, they have like zero traction because it's all fake news, but guess when the craziness started back up again? Just when the mallards are at the bottom of the population cycle. So don't be fooled that banning flooded corn is going to do anything to change the migration, because it ain't. And from a legal standpoint, flooded corn ain't going anywhere. It never will. So I do apologize for getting the organization date of that nut job group from Louisiana wrong, but it wasn't a lie. It was a mistake. The idea that I lie about everything because I got one date wrong is absurd. On to the next one. You're from New York. What the hell do you know about ducks? Whew. Well, here's my response. First of all, shut your face. First of all, country kids are country kids. I grew up chasing coons with black and tan coonhounds in the hills of Western New York. I'm not a city kid. I had a single shot .410 and single gauge for porcupines and squirrels at age 12. So shut your face. Number 2, I spent my entire life chasing ducks in duck science, conservation, and management. After getting a forestry degree and working in the timber industry, I decided that it was ducks and wetland conservation instead, and spent years in Missouri, Oklahoma, Mississippi, North Dakota, Manitoba, Ontario, Maine, Michigan, other states, and yeah, New York, chasing and studying ducks. Plus, that all came along with professional training from folks like Dr. Dave Ankney, Dr. Scott Petrie, Dr. Frank Rauer, and many, many state and federal waterfowl biologists, as well as all my good redneck friends. So yeah, I'm from New York, but I know a hell of a lot about ducks. But hey, lots of folks haven't gone back and listened to all the episodes of the FowlWeather Podcast to get to know me. So next week, I'm doing an episode called something like A Jack's Reef Life, Bubba and the Biologist, or Jack's Reef Life, A Country Boy Can Survive, to clear up a bit more about who I am. Yeah, I'm from New York, but also, shut your face. Okay, that was fun. On to the next one. Follow the money. You must be getting paid a hell of a lot to say the things you are saying because you are the one spreading fake news. So much fun. They even attacked me because my wife works for DU, and DU is the evil empire. I can't laugh enough at all of this. First of all, my wife kicks ass, so don't attack anything about her career with DU. She also hunts ducks, geese, deer, and turkeys. We fill the freezer together. We travel together to hunt, and she works her ass off for DU. If you haven't noticed, Ducks Unlimited has done a lot of good for the ducks, and she knows it. That's why I regularly work until 6 to 7 p.m. at night, because she's still not back from the office because a grant deadline needed to be met to ensure delivery of wetland restoration projects on state land to improve duck habitat for public hunting. There is no weird conspiracy whereby somehow we are getting paid anything. And here's the deal. The person usually coming up with wacko conspiracy stuff like that is probably the type of person that would take a bribe themselves. And they don't exist. Heck, we haven't even had time to run a ton of sponsors for the podcast like other folks have. We are basically running on a shoestring budget. So don't think that anyone is getting rich over reporting the facts on the FowlWeather Podcast. We are spending our time working to get the script correct. We are doing our homework. But please look to the others that are spewing misinformation, not doing their homework, having to react to comments on later episodes about stuff like reward bans, and look at the number of ads they're putting out. Maybe they should start turning the finger towards themselves and spending less time getting sponsors and more time getting the information right. Last one on fake news. And it's kind of lazy by this person, I think. DrMike, you can use statistics to show anything. The mallard harvest is down, and we need to quit shooting mallards, plus nobody knows how many mallards we are shooting. This was in response to our FowlWeather posting of mallard harvest corrected for effort or corrected for hunter days. Okay. So you just stated mallard harvest is down, which is an estimate that comes from the Harvest Information Program, and then told me I can't use the same data set to correct for effort because it doesn't fit your narrative or fairy tale telling. Maybe we should stop there, but this is consistent. Folks point to data, but when we at the FowlWeather Podcast analyze these data to provide a more informed picture of what has happened with harvest, now it's wrong because it doesn't conform. This is how crazy liberals act, right? This isn't how people with their heads screwed on straight act. Crazy liberals come up with preconceived notion of how the world works and then go look for information to back that up. We don't do that. We also don't make statistics show anything. Data are data. We are just interpreting them. That term that you can make stats say anything is false. And here's the deal. Nobody just uses raw banding data to estimate harvest rates. It has correction factors. So people, please quit posting graphs of raw harvest of mallards and other species because it don't make sense. The reality is that harvest, and in this case I will discuss Arkansas, mallard harvest per hunter day tracks quite well with the BPOP. The BPOP alone explains about 1/3 of the mallard harvest per hunter day. The other noise is likely weather and habitat conditions like cold or warm weather that pushes more or less ducks into Arkansas, plus drought versus flood, which greatly changes duck use in Arkansas. But the point is that mallard harvest is not tanking just because of something like flooded corn to the north, because a lot of changes in raw mallard harvest have to do with how many and how much people are going hunting. And the news is in, folks. Duck hunter days have declined by 11,478 duck hunters each year in Arkansas since 1999, with the year trend explaining 50% of the variation in duck hunter days spent afield. So harvest is explained, half of the harvest amount is explained by the number of duck hunter days spent afield from 1999 till present. That's why your mallard harvest is declining. Everyone knows days kill ducks, and you can't kill ducks if you ain't hunting. Okay, enough of getting my blood boiling. Last today, we reflect on the last 2 years of the FowlWeather Podcast as we go into our third season of producing the only science-based duck migration forecast available. Okay, so there's some other voodoo out there that purportedly produces a duck migration forecast, but it ain't based on the best available science, and it really looks basically like a wild-ass guess based on temperatures and wind direction and some that people made up. But back to the basics here. What we've enjoyed the most at the FowlWeather Podcast is all the great interactions with all the great people across duck country, USA, and beyond, and that includes our great friends in Canada. The interaction by messenger, email, social media, and our habitat site visits to see the great duck habitat has been fantastic. I can't express enough how blessed we are as a duck hunting community to share our passion for the ducks, duck biology, and duck conservation with y'all. I've made great new friends like Ramsey Russell, Forrest Carvajal, Chris Beckman, Matt Ellis, and we interviewed and got to know all those great up-and-coming waterfowl scientists, conservation and managers this year on the Young Waterfowl Professional Series. We provided a 4-part series on wetland management in spring 2024, and we know that help people have better duck marshes for ducks and to improve their hunting because we heard back from them. Then in 2025, this year, we produced the 4-part mallard series that got the good information to y'all as well across duck country, and the 2025 data stream series so that our friends across duck country could share this quality information about how the duck world works across coffee shops, duck blinds, and yes, the internet, so that we all can combat the misinformation machine that continues to put out wacko conspiracy theories to fit their preconceived agenda for their own benefit. We honestly never saw the misinformation machine coming when we started the FowlWeather Podcast, but we are happy that we picked up the torch of truth to counter the wackos. Okay, don't take offense. Some of y'all have your heart in the right place, and if we sat down over a good bourbon at camp or a coffee at the local store, we'd just swap stories and be good friends in no time. But we also have realized that there are folks that are helpless, that no matter how much good information you put in front of them, they will still tell you mallards are calendar migrants and you need to flood your entire field before season opens instead of stage flooding. All concepts that go completely against everything that tried and true testing of hypotheses in wetland management has told us. So I've learned to put the good information out there and not debate on social media. If you want the facts about ducks, duck migration, duck biology, and duck conservation and management, just listen to and share the information on the FowlWeather Podcast. The hate mail we get is just showing us that we are doing it right. So keep it coming and keep confirming your own biases. But above all, we wouldn't be here without our loyal listeners. So thank you for making my job of writing each episode a pleasure. Thank you for sharing in all the seasons of ducks and duck hunting with us at the FowlWeather Podcast. What's next for the FowlWeather Podcast? Honestly, more of the same. We're going to chase the next organic episode and build out our loyal listener base that wants the real and good information about the ducks. And truly, thank you for listening. And as always, may your skies be filled and shoot straight, my friends.
This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there is one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at friskies.com or visit your local store.
Gatorade is the #1 proven electrolyte blend designed to hydrate better than water. So you can lose more sweat and raise your game. Gatorade, is it in you?
Lowe's knows that no matter your paint project, saving is at the top of your list. That's why when you shop today, you can buy one, get one free. Select Valspar and HGTV Home by Sherwin-Williams. One-coat coverage interior paints via rebate. Shop these deals in-store or online today at Lowe's. We help, you save. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. Discount taken at time of purchase. See sales associate for details. Offer valid 8/21 through 9/3.
The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV. It's a new way to experience driving. The fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. The next chapter of Audi is here.